You can see the boat here behind me docked at the Fort Pierce Coast Guard station belonging to Brian Hooker and his wife Lynette Hooker.
Saturday, May 10th. The GPS went dark. Carly Aylesworth was watching the tracker. Two men she had never seen before were moving SOULMATE out of Marsh Harbor. Not Brian. Two strangers. And then the No Foreign Land tracking app went silent. The signal was gone. She posted a video from her phone, worried, confused, no answers from investigators. "I have not heard any news from the Coast Guard regarding this," she said. "I don't know what they're going to do about it." Hours later, she had her answer. The U.S. Coast Guard had seized SOULMATE. And by Monday morning, drone footage over Fort Pierce, Florida showed the 47-foot sailboat moored at the United States Coast Guard station. Crime scene tape up, blue-gloved federal agents stepping aboard, sealed brown manila evidence envelopes coming off the vessel, a processing table set up on the dock. The investigation had not been building toward something. It had arrived at something. Let me stop right there, because the words crime scene tape have been used in coverage of this case without fully explaining what they mean in a federal maritime context. This is not a formality. This is not administrative caution applied out of abundance. When federal agents designate a location as a crime scene and secure it with tape, they are making a legal declaration with real and lasting consequences. They are establishing a controlled perimeter within which evidence will be collected and preserved according to the standards that courts require for admissibility. They are protecting chain of custody, from the moment of collection, through every subsequent stage of a potential prosecution. SOULMATE is now officially, legally, formally a crime scene. This is confirmed across multiple independent public outlets. A source familiar with the investigation told Fox News Digital that the vessel was seized by the Coast Guard. CBS News confirmed it was taken into custody while en route to the United States. Prism News reported that taking custody of the boat moves the case beyond search and rescue questions and into the kind of evidence preservation that matters in a criminal inquiry. The Coast Guard Investigative Service, CAIS, is the lead agency. Not the FBI. Not state law enforcement. Not the Bahamian authorities. That distinction matters. Per CBS News, which obtained an internal Coast Guard memo earlier in this investigation, CAIS agents are sworn federal law enforcement officers who investigate violations of United States law, working closely with the Department of Justice. Their mandate covers crimes involving United States citizens and United States-flagged vessels in maritime contexts, including international waters and foreign jurisdictions. But here is what the official description does not capture. CAIS agents are maritime specialists. They know vessels the way FBI agents know buildings. They understand precisely how a boat's electrical systems operate and record data. They know how navigation logs are stored and retrieved. They know what a battery management system tracks and how to read its output. They know how satellite communication platforms create connection histories and where those records reside after the session ends. They are not applying land-based forensic protocols to an environment they do not know. They are operating in exactly the environment they were specifically trained and built for. According to forensic scientist Joseph Scott Morgan, who spoke directly to Fox News Digital about this investigation, CAIS has the entire federal government at their disposal and can request assistance from agencies including the FBI. Morgan said it is likely investigators are looking for signs of, and I'm quoting him precisely, large focal areas of blood, a copious amount of blood, dried blood. Has there been any effort to sanitize the area, clean the area? That is the forensic standard being applied to SOULMATE right now. I want to walk through what investigators are actually examining inside that boat, because most coverage of this case has not laid it out clearly. There are 3 categories of evidence on SOULMATE, and they operate on completely different timelines. Category 1. Biological. Morgan was candid about the challenge here. He told Fox News Digital that investigators are not in an ideal situation, seizing the boat more than a month after Lynette Hooker went missing. His exact words, "The more time trickles through, the hourglass, all that stuff becomes degraded. It becomes compromised. So that can be problematic." That is accurate. I am not going to minimize it. Biological evidence, blood, DNA, trace material, degrades with heat and time. A vessel sitting in the Bahamas through April and May has been in exactly the kind of warm, humid conditions that accelerate that degradation. 6 weeks have passed since the night of April 4th. The delivery captain and first mate were aboard during the crossing. The window for ideal biological evidence recovery has narrowed. But here is what counters that. Luminol. Forensic technicians using luminol can detect traces of blood that have been cleaned, wiped, or degraded beyond what the naked eye can detect. It reacts with the iron component of hemoglobin to produce a visible glow under ultraviolet light. On fiberglass, the primary construction material of a vessel like SOULMATE, luminol retains its capacity to reveal trace evidence weeks or months after the original event. If blood was present on that boat and someone attempted to clean it, luminol is the tool that will find what remains. Category 2. Electronic. This is where the timeline concern becomes irrelevant. Electronic data does not degrade the way biological material does. Logs do not fade in the heat. Timestamps do not wash away. GPS records do not decompose over 5 weeks. SOULMATE was equipped with a battery management system, a modern unit that Brian and Lynette replaced within the last couple of years, per sources familiar with the vessel. Newer battery management systems come standard with comprehensive digital logging. They are not old-fashioned power storage cells. They are data-generating systems that keep a time-stamped record of everything that draws electricity from them. Every event. Time-stamped. When someone turns on the galley lights, the log records it. When someone runs the freshwater pump, the log records it. When the hot water heater activates, the log records it. When a device connects to the vessel's charging system, the log records it. Per people with direct knowledge of Lynette's habits aboard SOULMATE, including Carly Aylesworth, who spent time aboard in February 2026, Lynette's consistent routine when returning to the boat after a day out was to go below and shower off the salt. Every time. Board the boat, go below, shower, get comfortable. That routine has a specific electrical signature. If Lynette came aboard SOULMATE on the night of April 4th, the battery log should reflect 2 people returning home after a full day on the water. Lights triggered. Water pump running. Hot water system engaged. Devices connecting to the charging system. The unmistakable pattern of domestic life. Resuming aboard a vessel after a day away. Brian Hooker's account requires SOULMATE to have sat dark and empty from mid-afternoon on April 4th until Hopetown Fire and Rescue brought him back the morning of April 5th. That is the account he gave to Bahamian authorities. That is the account he gave on the recorded phone call with Blaine Stevenson on April 7th, the call he did not know was being captured. That is the account he gave on camera to NBC, ABC, and CBS the day after his release from custody. The battery log has exactly 2 options. It either shows nothing unusual after the afternoon of April 4th, automatic systems only, refrigerator cycling, bilge pump, processes that run without human presence, consistent with Brian's account. Or it shows a pattern of human activity after 7:45 in the evening. Lights. Water. Hot water. Charging devices. The electrical signature of people living normally on their vessel after returning home. There is no ambiguous middle ground. The log either corroborates his account, or it demolishes it. It cannot be persuaded. It cannot be pressured. It cannot be convinced that its timestamps are wrong. It simply recorded what drew power and when. Kais has that system. Kais has that log. When the analysis is complete, one of those 2 scenarios will emerge from the data. Not as a theory, as a fact. Category 3. Satellite. SOULMATE was equipped with a Starlink satellite internet terminal, positioned high on the mast for maximum broadcast range. This is the system that kept Brian and Lynette connected throughout 4 years of cruising. It is the system Lynette used to post their content. It kept their phones and other devices linked to the world when they were at anchor in the Abacos. Here is the forensic detail that makes this potentially the most important piece of evidence in the entire case. Starlink does not store its connection logs on the vessel. It stores them on remote servers, cloud infrastructure operated by SpaceX. Those servers log every connection event from every terminal on their global network. And those servers are accessible to federal investigators operating under a Department of Justice subpoena. Both Brian and Lynette's phones were active on the evening of April 4th. Both wore Apple Watches linked to their phones. The moment those devices came within range of SOULMATE's Starlink network, they would have connected. And that connection would have been logged. With a precise timestamp. Per Kenneth Angerand, adjunct professor of maritime law at the University of Houston Law Center, speaking to Fox News Digital about this case, United States authorities, including the Coast Guard, have jurisdiction to make an arrest if the evidence leads there, despite the incident occurring in Bahamian waters, because the vessel flies an American flag. That legal authority extends to subpoenas served on United States-based companies operating cloud infrastructure. Starlink is operated by SpaceX, a United States company. A federal subpoena served on SpaceX is fully enforceable. If those Starlink records show that Brian and Lynette's devices connected to SOULMATE's network after 7:30 in the evening on April 4th, and Brian's account requires those devices to have been nowhere near SOULMATE at that time, that digital trail cannot be explained away. It is a server record. It has a timestamp. It does not have a version of events it prefers. There is one piece of evidence that most coverage of this case has significantly underreported. SOULMATE had cameras aboard. Per sources with direct knowledge of the vessel's equipment, Cross-referenced against documented footage and photographs of the boat examined throughout this investigation, there appears to be a security camera system installed under the bimini. For those unfamiliar with sailing terminology, the bimini is the canopy structure over the cockpit of a sailboat. It is the shaded outdoor living area where people spend the majority of their time when on deck. It is where you arrive when you come aboard from the dinghy. It is the first space your body occupies when you step onto your vessel. A security camera positioned under that bimini has a direct line of sight to the cockpit, to the companionway hatch that leads below decks, to anyone coming aboard, to anyone moving across that deck space toward the interior. Brian Hooker's account of the night of April 4th requires SOULMATE to have been completely unoccupied from the time he and Lynette left in the dinghy, somewhere around 7:30 in the evening, until Hopetown Fire and Rescue brought him back to the vessel the morning of April 5th. If that account is true, the camera under that bimini should show nothing after they left. No motion. No people. No activity. Dark cockpit. Empty vessel. That is what the recording should contain, if Brian is telling the truth. But if the dinghy returned to the anchorage, if they boarded that vessel, if they were on it on the night of April 4th, that camera may have captured it. And here is the detail that transforms this from significant to potentially decisive. Modern security camera systems installed on live-aboard vessels frequently upload footage to cloud storage automatically and continuously, which means that even if someone deleted footage from the camera's local memory, even if someone wiped the physical device, the cloud record may already exist on a remote server. A server that KAIS can reach with a federal subpoena. A server that has been quietly archiving footage from a camera aboard a vessel on the night Lynette Hooker disappeared. We do not yet know what that camera captured. KAIS is working to find out right now at Fort Pierce. Processing the evidence on SOULMATE tells us what happened on that boat. But it does not by itself tell us where Lynette is. And finding Lynette, bringing her home to her mother and her daughter, is what justice for Lynette Hooker actually requires. The Sea of Abaco has returned nothing. Per every fisherman, every diver, every marine professional with knowledge of those waters who has been consulted throughout this investigation, the Sea of Abaco is approximately 15 feet at its deepest. It is clear water. It has been searched thoroughly from the surface, from below, and from the air. In the weeks since April 4th, nothing connected to Lynette has surfaced. Not a piece of clothing. Not the bright green dry bag she was carrying. Not any personal effect. The Sea of Abaco gives things back. That is what local experts, fishermen, and divers all say. If Lynette went into that water under the circumstances Brian describes, something should have come back by now. Nothing has. Which means if she is not in that water, she is somewhere else. And identifying where somewhere else might be has become a parallel track of this investigation, driven significantly by community volunteers doing ground-level search work across the terrain. Around the Abacos. The current search areas, all verified through public reporting, include Tahiti Beach and the Atlantic-facing shoreline on the eastern side of Elbow Cay. Brian and Lynette spent the afternoon of April 4th at Tahiti Beach. They knew that shoreline. They had been there that same day. The mangrove area on the northern end of Elbow Cay, before the entrance to Hopetown Harbor. Mangroves present a specific forensic challenge and a specific forensic opportunity. Cadaver dogs and forensic experts can detect the oils released by decomposition as they rise to the surface of water bodies at a range of up to 30 feet. That range makes mangrove areas searchable in a way that open water is not. Snapper Point Marina, the ruins of a resort destroyed by Hurricane Dorian in 2019. Brian and Lynette knew it. They visited it with Carly in February of 2026 and documented it on their social media. And the western shore of Lubbers Quarters, the area receiving the most concentrated volunteer search attention right now. Lubbers Quarters is a small private cay positioned directly between Elbow Cay and Marsh Harbor, sitting at the geographic center of the area where this entire investigation has unfolded. Its western shore faces away from Elbow Cay on the leeward side, meaning it would have been relatively sheltered on the night of April 4th. A dinghy could reach those beaches in darkness without fighting the conditions Brian has described. Per Drop Dead Serious reporting, a resident on Lubbers Quarters, a man named Dean, who has a home facing Elbow Cay, has surveillance footage that may have had a direct line of sight to SOULMATE's anchor position for the duration of the night of April 4th. That footage is part of what investigators are examining as they work to reconstruct what happened in that anchorage after 7:45 in the evening. On April 14th, the day after his release from Bahamian custody, Brian Hooker stood in front of cameras and spoke. Per ABC News, he said, "I never would harm Lynette. And I want to find Lynette. It's been 10 days. It's been a long time. I don't think I've ever been apart from her. He said his sole focus was finding his wife, no matter how likely or unlikely. He said he was not leaving the Bahamas without her. He said it would take a higher authority to make him stop searching. Within hours of saying that on camera, he was on a flight home. He has not, based on all available public reporting, made meaningful contact with Lynette's mother or daughter since. He has not sat with Darlene Hamlet. He has not called Carly Aylesworth. He has not been the loudest, most persistent, most present voice demanding that investigators find his wife and bring her home. That is not evidence of a crime. Brian has not been charged. His attorneys say he is innocent. But it is a documented fact. And it is the kind of fact that investigators notice. The kind that sits with juries. The kind that the people who love Lynette are living with every single morning. Brian Hooker's Michigan-based attorney, Crystal Marie Hauser, told Fox News Digital, "I would ask those watching to treat him the way you would want to be treated, to give him the benefit of the doubt. And to consider that not all of us, nor you, considering your own relationships, the way you speak to one another, we all handle things in different ways." His Bahamian attorney, Terrell Butler, declined to answer questions about the seizure of SOULMATE, whether Hooker was cooperating with authorities, and whether he remains under investigation. Per military.com, that is a legal prerogative. Attorneys advise their clients not to speak and decline questions on their behalf. That is standard practice. But Brian Hooker's silence toward the people who love Lynette, not toward investigators, not toward the media, but toward her family, is something Carly has spoken about publicly. And something that sits heavily in this case. Carly Aylesworth posted a video on social media on May 11th, the day after SOULMATE arrived at Fort Pierce. She was describing her first Mother's Day without her mother. She said, "It's pretty hard right now to know that she's not a text away anymore. And last week was my birthday on Sunday. So it's been kind of a rough week, honestly." Stop on that. Carly Aylesworth's birthday fell on Mother's Day weekend 2026. She turned whatever age she turned this year without her mother. Without answers. And per her own statement, without any update from the Coast Guard about the investigation that is supposed to be finding out what happened to the woman who raised her. She knew SOULMATE had left the Bahamas. She had watched the tracker go dark. She had posted a video describing two strangers moving the boat, GPS turned off, heading up the East Coast. She did not know the details. She had not been told. Per CBS News, she said in the video that she was aware the sailboat had left the Bahamas but had not received any update from the Coast Guard. The investigation has been conducted with the confidentiality that active federal criminal cases require. That is legally appropriate and necessary. But it means that the people who love Lynette most are sitting in silence while federal agents work through evidence bags on a dock in Florida. On her birthday. On her first Mother's Day. Without a word. Let me give you a precise picture of where everything stands as of today, drawn from verified public reporting only. SOULMATE is at the Coast Guard station in Fort Pierce, Florida. Officially a crime scene. CAI's agents are conducting an active forensic examination that will span multiple sessions across multiple days. Evidence has been removed in sealed, documented bags. A processing table has been established on the dock. The examination of the camera system, the battery management logs, the Starlink connection records, the navigation data, the communications equipment, and the biological surfaces throughout the vessel is underway. Per Fox News Digital, the Coast Guard declined to comment on investigation specifics, citing its active status. Per military.com, Brian Hooker's attorneys have declined to address questions about the seizure or his cooperation status. Per CBS News, CAI's investigators have been actively conducting interviews with potential witnesses as the probe has intensified. The dinghy, the 8-foot Boss hardhull at the physical center of Brian's account of the night of April 4th, remains in Bahamian custody. Its surfaces, lock pins, anchor system, and interior have not yet been subject to a full federal forensic examination. That needs to change. The Abaco in surveillance video remains sealed under Bahamian investigative authority. Whether it has been shared with federal investigators is not publicly confirmed. If it has not, it should be transferred to CAI's without further delay. The footage holds answers to questions about timing and movement that no other piece of evidence can provide. The ground search continues. Searches of Tahiti Beach, the Hope Town Mangrove Area, Snapper Point Marina, and the western shore of Lubbers Quarters are ongoing. Per Prism News, Carly Aylesworth said on Mother's Day that the family had received no update from investigators. That will change. The forensic examination of SOULMATE will produce results. Those results will either support Brian Hooker's account of the night of April 4th, or they will not. When they do, the direction of this investigation shifts permanently. In one direction or the other. Brian Hooker has not been charged. His attorneys maintain his innocence. We say that every single time, because it is true and because it matters. What is also true is this. Kai's agents are inside SOULMATE right now. Crime scene tape is up at Fort Pierce. Evidence bags are sealed and logged at a processing table on the dock. What they are examining includes a security camera system whose footage may exist not only on the physical device, but on cloud servers accessible by federal subpoena, which may have recorded whether anyone boarded SOULMATE on the night of April 4th. A battery management system that logged every electrical event on that vessel with precise timestamps, creating a forensic diary that either confirms SOULMATE sat dark and empty all night, or proves definitively that it did not. A Starlink satellite connection system whose records exist not on the boat, but on SpaceX servers, accessible to federal investigators regardless of what happened to any physical device aboard that vessel, showing every device that connected to SOULMATE's network and exactly when. Biological surfaces throughout the hull, the cabin, the heads, the galley, surfaces that luminol and advanced forensic techniques can read even after weeks have passed. And Lynette's personal belongings. An aquamarine bathing suit cover-up. A royal blue headscarf. An Apple Watch. Items that have no business being on that boat if Brian's account of the night of April 4th is true. Per forensic scientist Joseph Scott Morgan, speaking to Fox News Digital, Kai's has the entire federal government at their disposal. They can request FBI assistance. They can send materials to the Quantico laboratory for analysis. Every resource that federal law enforcement can bring to bear on a criminal investigation is available to the agents working through SOULMATE right now. Per maritime law professor Kenneth Arend, speaking to Fox News Digital, those agents have the legal authority to make an arrest if the evidence leads there. Even though the underlying event occurred in Bahamian waters. Lynette Hooker has been missing for 40 days. Her daughter spent her birthday and her first Mother's Day without her. Without answers. And without a word from the man who was the last person to see her alive. She was 55 years old. She chose a life on the ocean because she wanted to. She documented every part of it, the storms and the sunsets and the sea turtles and the hard passages, because she believed in what she was living. Her last caption said she was not going anywhere for a while. Her boat is a crime scene tonight. And the people best equipped to find out what happened to her are going through it right now. Piece by piece. Evidence bag by evidence bag. We are going to be here for every result, every filing, every development. If you have any information connected to this case, about the night of April 4th, about any vessel in the Aunt Pat's Bay area, about any of the search locations, submit it through the Kai's Tips app. Anonymous. Available on iOS and Android. The link is in the description below. This video is based entirely on publicly available information from named, verified sources including law enforcement statements, confirmed media reports from Fox News Digital, CBS News, Prism News, NBC News, ABC News, Military.com, and KSDK, and named expert statements. No conclusions have been drawn about any individual's guilt or innocence. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. All persons mentioned are presumed innocent unless charged and convicted by a court of law.